everybody. Welcome to the Moose Club. Before we get started, please like us, follow on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube at Moose Club Pod, and then look for all of our latest episodes on Spotify by searching the Moose Club. Okay, so let's get started. We're going to talk here a little bit about the Department of Justice under Bill Barr, and then under the larger umbrella of just the Trump administration, and their kind of propensity and, repeated firing of prosecutors that are investigating people, close to the Trump inner circle. I know when Trump first got elected, 46 Obama prosecutors were pushed out. That's fairly normal-ish, like that, they should be able to, appoint the people they want in those positions. I get that. But this is kind of taking it to a new level with whether it be Michael Cohen right after Bill Barr, took office or, took over the DOJ, or Roger Stone, again, Bill Barr interfering there, or the recent one with the Southern District of New York, their top prosecutor, who was looking into good old Rudolph Giuliani. It's unsettling, I think, to say the least, but Joe, what do you think of this pattern of trying to seemingly protect people close to Trump by relieving the people who are looking into them?
I didn't know that the Attorney General was the president's lapdog and how to defend his inner circle, but like with the recent findings of like prosecutors saying that they are influenced in the Roger Stone case, or a judge having to say, hey, you're not going to just drop this Michael Flynn case, or Jeffrey Berman of the Southern District of New York just being told, like, hey, he's stepping down. And he's like, wait, what? And then subsequently getting fired because he didn't step down, like, because he was investigating Giuliani and Trump's inner circle. Like, this has set a dangerous precedence for any Justice Department in the future. I mean, really what it comes back to is, a repeated allowing of Trump to influence these issues by, Senate Republicans, Senate Democrats, just letting him do this without really fighting back it's going to be the dangerous precedent set for the Department of Justice for a long, long time.
Yeah, it's mark your calendars. I saw that Bill Barr is going to testify before the House Judiciary Committee the end of July, I think July 28th, which will just be, it's supposed to be just, to just general oversight, but it's going to be a shit show. I mean, it's just going to be just accusations from Dems on, which I think rightfully so, on how he's basically just become an arm of the president, and the Justice Department's no longer impartial, and then it'll just be Republicans trying to defend the way he's done the job as Attorney General. Bork, what do you think just generally of, like, just the practice of what seems to be of just, hey, they're looking into, people close to me, this could be bad for me. Okay, we're just going to remove them and put people in here who might be more sympathetic to things that are beneficial to me.
It seems that William Barr is fitting the Pompeo mold of being the correct kind of, not necessarily sycophant, because he's saying that he's the president's lapdog isn't necessarily correct. but he knows how to manipulate the system enough so that he is able to give him enough cover essentially and let Trump do what he wants. Because due to the fact that like the unitary executive like philosophy is able to exist within like the judicial system or
Thanks,
like
Cody.
the higher up levels of the judicial system, that the executive branch can pretty much be unchecked more or less. Then you go back to the interview that I was listening to on NPR where this guy he's saying that if you take into account William Barr and his perspective on the unitary executive, that if you look at his time overseeing the Justice Department, then he's doing an A-OK job. Which, I mean, when you're overseeing something like the Southern District of New York, which oversees like Wall Street and shit like that, you're already probably like overseeing one of the biggest criminal enterprises in human history, just on the daily comings and goings of Wall Street, just its fundamental practice. So I can't say, I mean, the fact that he is so blatantly doing it, and it is just kind of mask off now that, hey, yeah, the Justice Department, it was kind of always a wink and a nod, but yeah, it's explicitly going to be whatever party is in the executive branch, they're going to put people in there to protect their guys, essentially. And if that is the new standard going forward, then that, I mean, not to say that that isn't already the case to a certain degree. I mean, you can go back to a lot of different things, the last financial meltdown, and see how many of those people responsible for that probably should have wound up in prison but
Right.
didn't. I mean, so I mean, you can say that some people have, true, and this Justice Department is exceptionally terrible, as is with all things Donald Trump related, but I don't think it's a ground-shattering precedence, is my hesitation to say. I think that they're a little more blatant about who they're protecting, and
Well, I guess it does.
they're not coming up with legitimate reasons why things are fine. They're just like, just stop investigating this.
Right. And I guess what makes this maybe a little bit different and the optics of it worse is, I mean, there haven't, to my limited knowledge, there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of precedent for just people left and right this close to the president being investigated for various things. Like, I think that's kind of what makes it a little different and why it looks so bad that,
or to the fact that like Michael Flynn admitted he did what he was.
okay.
What?
Here's my thing with that is I don't really think that's a very good argument, because Michael Flynn took a plea deal, and in
Even
our in our
more.
in our justice system, just because somebody pleads to something doesn't necessarily mean that they did it. It's they're not willing to risk the harsher sentence by, taking their chances in court. I think with Flynn, I do think he was guilty of the things that he did, but I just think in general, I think the whole, well, he admitted to it, so therefore he did it.
So what signal is that sending if he takes the plea deal and then gets bamboozled out of it by his friend or his?
Oh yeah, it's the optics of it are awful. Like,
I mean, I get what you're saying, but I don't give it that dismissive. I mean, not saying I don't want to attack you, but I think giving it that dismissive of a overtone
Well, I
is.
mean, they were threatening to go after his son, and so I mean, I can see which there may have been merit to. I'm not super familiar with the Michael Flynn thing. It's been, I mean, it hasn't been that long ago, but in this administration, it seems like it was 15 years ago.
A little ironic that he was supposed to cover for his son.
Well,
He
I
was
mean,
he was an
I think it's
agent for Turkey or something like that, an unregistered foreign agent for
yeah, and then he
Turkey.
lied to the
Yeah.
FBI about it.
Yeah.
But I can
yeah.
understand.
And then showed up on the awards for Russian Times, supported by the Kremlin. No
Well,
big
I
deal.
mean, that's just a tactical move by. I don't think that really says anything on whether. I mean, I could see Russia doing that even if Michael Flynn never had. You know what I mean? Like it just kind of it's just that whole thing of Russia just trying to sow discord in our process. But I mean,
And he showed up to that. I mean,
oh,
it's not
I
like
didn't know
it's,
that. Oh, my,
yeah, they were on like an award show of the Russian, times the
that's bad. Former U.S. general, yeah, that's really bad.
yeah, and the guy that's supposed to be semi in charge of foreign policy.
Right. Yeah. A former head of one of our intelligence agencies. Yeah, that's real bad actually.
Come on, man. I mean, there's coincidences, and then there's
No, I agree. I mean, like I said earlier, I mean, I think he probably is guilty of these things.
Right. The problem is if you really looked into 90% of the people in these circles, you would probably find a fair amount of some sort of criminal money, offshore tax evasion, something or other that anybody can prosecute, and 90% of it gets overlooked. And if random person in there sees that, oh yeah, that's fine. But
hey,
someone like Donald Trump gets in there and sees that, and he's like, oh yeah, just call off the dogs, we're fine. That's not a problem.
Bork, I don't like how you're questioning President Trump. He's trying to drain the swamp, so
Oh yeah.
He
Hopefully DC's underwater in a couple of years anyway.
oh, now you're bringing up pseudoscience and climate change. Typical liberal.
Yeah.
The one I have a bigger issue with is the Roger Stone case with and I think some of the prosecutors have kind of spoken to this, like the idea that the leadership of the DOJ would disagree with a sentencing recommendation isn't, that's not by itself a abnormal thing. I mean, that happens. It's the way that they went about it, and the seeming pressure coming from the White House for it to happen. I mean, how many times did Trump say, "Oh yeah, I could," hinting or talking loosely around the idea of a pardon for Roger Stone? I mean, it's interesting, and it's definitely unsettling. But I mean, again, this isn't. I don't think any of this is surprising. Powerful people who have close relationships to other powerful people, the president, get preferential treatment. Like, this isn't like an original thing. The problem with this is the proximity to the president and kind of the precedents it potentially could set for the DOJ moving forward.
And criminal wrongdoing.
Right. Yeah. No. So what do you think, Joe? Just like in general, like, and I mean, we spoke about Flynn, but with Stone, I mean, at least Stone got a sentence. I mean, he's gonna spend some time in jail. I mean, he's an old guy. Like, it's not like he's got 30 years to live left. So I mean,
the great irony of the Trump presidency is he came in and say, outsider trying to drain the swamp, like I said earlier, and didn't want corruption or says he didn't want corruption. He was the law and order president, right? Candidate.
He tweets long order for that.
What he's been the most lax on. I guess the best way I can put it is, questionable ethics. He's been very lax on his Justice Department having questionable ethics and questionable motives. So I don't know. I just find a great irony in, the Trump's presidency and how his Justice Department has come to flourishing. I don't know. It's beyond words at this time. I mean, I think they're getting away with a lot of things that, and I hate the Obama comparisons, but I mean, if Obama was doing these things, Hillary's emails, oh my gosh.
Right.
Hillary's emails has happened like 4 times in this Justice Department. Like, come on.
Bork, what do you think? Are you?
What do you have to say to that, Bork?
Yeah.
I was just gonna say Obama killed a U.S. citizen. But...
Huh?
Obama killed a U.S. citizen. The terrorist, that U.S. citizen guy that went and joined. Jihadi.
Well, he also killed the 4 people at Benghazi by not responding.
Well, that's whatever. But he actually killed that guy. That's the Benghazi thing is debatable, but which is definitely an interesting opinion, definitely an interesting legal opinion out of the Justice Department of any administration, but let alone a liberal one.
Yeah. What, Bork, what do you think? I mean, is there what can be done to, short of the Senate being flipped and it being a Democratic majority in the Senate and actually being able to enact oversight on the Justice Department, and even then I'm not sure how much they could really do. Like, is this going to kind of be the new normal, or what do you think? What kind of precedence does this set?
Yeah, I mean, you would. I think you would have to really start rethinking a lot of ways that we think, or a lot of powers that have been pseudo-ceded to the executive branch over the years, because because the legislative branch doesn't function in the way that it is supposed to. The compensation for that through executive action on pretty much foreign policy, immigration. I don't know. Can you guys think of any executive orders that are essentially policy right now? I can't think of any. And then just another example of that is fucking another omnibus every time a spending bill has to go. So like, the bare minimum that Congress has to do to keep the government running, they're sometimes able to do, essentially. And it's just like, yep, here's your pot of money, fucking spend it, do whatever you got to do. So like, what you're asking, what you would need Congress, the legislative branch, to figure out, like, politics in this country has to improve drastically for that to happen. And how, like, does that happen? Where does that happen first? Does that happen with the voters themselves, where there's some sort of disgust against it, and they vote for one of the other opposing parties? Maybe. I don't, like, if maybe that is the tipping point. We do just need to get enough Democrats into power in the House and in the Senate, and this will all be fixed. Not impossible. What was that?
Until they're not, in the majority.
Right. Until they're not the majority again, which is just like, it's really tough that the system operates in the way that it does, and that when you are in power, you have to hold on to it with everything you possibly can. And when you are in power, you also have to be shoving through writing every possible executive order that you possibly can. Like make the GOP challenge you in courts, make them do what the Democrats are doing right now. That's essentially what FDR did. FDR just threw shit against the wall, and eventually yeah, sure, we'll just pack the Supreme Court. Yeah, we'll do anything. At this point, it might be just that kind of, without some, monumental party restructuring or something like that. That's just
right, which
outside anybody's vision to see. There could be some, the National Socialist Party, which is just racist socialism. You could, that is totally possible at this point. But
I think you're right. I think I think you're 100% right on when you get in a position, if Democrats get into a position where they control House, Senate, and the White House, you just have to get as much stuff through as you possibly can. The problem is, I don't think that was the intent for all the jokes and we've had about the founding fathers before. I don't think that was their vision of how the government was going to operate, and also it just isn't a very efficient way for it to operate. If then in potentially 4 more years, the roles can be reversed and it can just be flipped. You know what I mean? So yeah, I guess maybe the answer is
the best answer of what we need to do to reverse this is come out the next 2 elections and beat Trumpism.
Yeah, I agree.
We have to come out in margins and unanimously go after states like South Carolina, Senate. Go at states like Kansas, where Democrats are showing, gains in their polling. You got to start flipping and making, majority unanimous decisions towards a better policy for the U.S. government.
Yeah. Okay, here to wrap up real quick. Just real quickly, do you think each of you guys? Do you think if Trump gets reelected, is Bill Barr the Attorney General for his second term? Joe, what do you think?
Yeah, why not? Why would Trump get rid of him? Would I think that Democrats would be going after him pretty hard? Yes, and justifiably. But yeah, there's no reason why Trump would get rid of him.
Mark, what do you think?
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
I agree. Why wouldn't why would you don't from Trump's perspective, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. It's working for him. So
yeah, that's what Sessions' problem was, that he recused himself from the whole Russia thing, and that he just, hey, I put you here so you could warn us, so we can get, at the very least, warn us so we can get out ahead of this investigation before, and you just completely, I can't kick you out because, how that would look optically right now. And that's one relic, Jeff Sessions, of someone who is trying to bend the knee too hard, but also trying to give the institution that they represent the legitimacy that they think it still has, kind of thing.
Right.
Whereas Barr is just, I know what I can do here, and just like Pompeo. But
yeah, no, I agree. That kind of concludes our assessment of the dumpster fire that is the DOJ under the Trump administration. One more time, make sure to like, follow, subscribe to our social media accounts, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube at Moose Club Pod, and find us on Spotify by searching the Moose Club. Thanks.